There's this lack of control when your actions are driven by unknown forces that know all your dirty secrets. It's the basis of a rocky relationship based on destruction, and the wandering sliver of hope that they will abide by what they say, that they will not throw you to the wolves. Well, what kind of system is that, if all your cards are shown on the spotlight and theirs are not even on the table? This is 2 takes, and this is 1 shot, an analysis of the episode Shut Up and Dance in the Black Mirror universe. This whole episode can be placed as a cautionary tale about placing oneself in precarious positions on the internet. However, if you think about it, Kenny did have a warning at the very beginning. The anti-malware software he downloaded was called Shrive. Shrive is actually an archaic term meaning to either confess your sins to a priest or to be absolved by them. True, the Shrive download is there for the freedom of all, and it was unfortunate that Kenny had downloaded it, but it can also be seen as the people behind the troll face just simply fishing the internet for troll makers, finding Kenny doing something he shouldn't have. This can be seen as many different things, that the troll faces were essentially trying to weed out the wicked from the flock, or they were wanting people, anyone really, to do their bidding. In this case, for them, this could all be seen as a game, and the sins of the people unfortunate to be tied to this type of choke are the ones taking the blame. And what's worse is that there's not a notion of any kind of forgiveness. An unknown force manipulating you to accept the consequences of your sins. Karma can be a bitch. Kenny's shame and fear is undeniably heightened with the anxiety of being caught. Throughout the episode, we were questioning this thought process until all of the cards were placed on the table. Kenny did not want a video of himself masturbating to become public knowledge, and for the most part, we were on his side, perhaps feeling horrible for the terrible acts he would have to commit. But placing all the pieces together, the audience realizes that he was looking at children and getting off on it. Hence his willingness to do anything it takes not to let this come to the surface. Kenny knows it's wrong, but he does it anyway. And the indication that because he's young himself emphasizes that he's not doing anything to children yet. The scene of him working at a fast food restaurant and helping the little girl with the figurine that she has left behind shows many things. That Kenny is a kind and considerate person, that he wants to help those who present innocence, and that perhaps he is naive and childlike himself. But it all boils down to the attraction that he has for children, and how he is not interested in people, even his female supervisor who is approachable, or his male co-workers who take an instant dislike of him because he is not expressing the same sort of interest or interaction that they have. Kenny is seen as different, and finally, at the end, we understand why.
There's no cure for the internet. It would never go away. It would be glued to your name, a fucking stain on you.
Even from the very beginning, it feels like an aspect of technology, an AI of sorts, is controlling the situation. The very language of how they begin the instructions, of how Kenny in the near future will be activated, emphasizes a sense of foreboding for a human, but for an AI, a patient period of buffering before working. It seems that everything isn't demanded of him is essentially a test. Kenny has to bike ride to a specific location with a very small window of its success, and in the end, he makes it. He was presented with the first test of reliance and punctuality, whereas compared to a computer, would have no problem with calculating the distance, and perhaps with less panicking. With a human, being rushed leads to mistakes that could potentially be made. And the next part? Kenny receives the cake from a courier on a motorbike. He takes Kenny's picture and sends it to the anonymous people. For further clarification, they ask for the code on the cake, almost like a fail-safe access point for a password. And the cake? Almost like a bittersweet reminder of what is happening. The fear of what is in the parcel, the unknown, is the first aspect. But when Kenny takes a peek and realizes that it's just a cake, his fear dissolves, perhaps ensuring the idea that not everything is what it seems. And fear can be another thing that is monitored, and in this instance, perhaps even laughed at. But perhaps the more metaphorical aspect of the cake is that its looks can be deceiving. And like anything on the internet, especially in this case with Kenny's downloading of anti-malware, has this come true. Going back to the cake, the next test is for Hector to be a getaway driver and for Kenny to rob a bank. Because of this, Kenny, realizing again that the cake is not what is being delivered, but what is inside of it. The worst disguise in the world. A hat, tinted glasses, and a gun. Therefore, the behaviour patterns change again, but fail the passer beforehand to be eclipsed by the fear of having to do something illegal in a heightened state of desperation. The cake was a folly, a farce, a trap of establishing false sense of security. From robbing a bank comes a videoed fight to death between Kenny and another person, the sack full of money that Kenny just stole in the middle of the woods. A GoPro camera is started up, ensuring that nothing is missed. And this is where it gets more animalistic. From test to this battle of wits, it becomes like the Squid Game. People paying to watch this encounter and outcome, much like people watching hate crimes, snuff porn and the like, is gruesome, disgusting, unfortunately available on the internet, much like Kenny's ease to find child porn, and it's all anonymous. The people, children, or even animals involved are not willing participants, making the horror be even more realistic, rising the value and even the price to watch it. And reflecting this, you can also be seen, especially from the main characters, Kenny and Hector, both being male, that it's on the basis of revenge porn. Both protagonists are placed in this situation through the lust of things that are forbidden to them. Revenge porn so often focuses on the degradation and the blackmail of women, but seeing it from this point of view, it looks like the tables have turned. Blackmail in the form of something unknown is a scary thought. They cannot even place a face to ones that hold all the cards. Going back to the fight to the death, this battle is almost like a metaphor to make you question whether or not your preferences of what you watch, and the safety of your house or office, can turn on its head and have you become the unwilling participant. What would you do then? Would you enjoy it? Or find its horror to be too much, even though you were happy enough to watch it behind a screen? The 12 Faces are vengeful, whether it's an organisation or just one person, has triggered these thoughts in these few chosen people, exhausting them on the edge of desperation and beyond, and then shown their secrets to the world anyway, whether or not they had succeeded in the demands that they were given. The last scene, beautifully portrayed with Radiohead's exit music for a film, in the background, expressing the inescapable claustrophobia of each person's situation, does its own justice by the lyrics. These lyrics and that song play in the absolute hopelessness that the protagonist has, even when he has help in another kindred spirit, Hector, when undertaking these seemingly unconnected tasks to the very end. Those under the influence of the troll faces, especially Kenny, emphasize the song because of the very thing that they lack: control of the situation. There is an uncomfortableness about the whole scenario, placing the action and the consequence out in the open for you to decide who is the bad guy, knowing full well that some have gotten off fairly lightly than others. In a way, the various things that have been discussed before delves deeper into what people are doing on the internet in this day and age, hiding behind a meme, the troll faces, so they can act out and say anything to anyone without any consequence. The consequence of downloading unknown things off the internet that leaks a hidden virus onto your computer. The collectiveness of the internet and mobile phones for the access of information and the aspect of taking over devices. The inhumane demands from a faceless technology towards people who have felt themselves innocent and more importantly safe. Even the episode's name, Shut Up and Dance, indicates the viciousness of a demand, of how the troll faces want all their victims to be like their performing monkeys and do as they say. The concept of finding the one thing people want to hide and using it against them, for the feeling of ultimate control. What are your thoughts on what was discussed in this episode? Comment and let me know to open up a conversation. Like and subscribe for more content of this nature, and come talk to me on Twitter or Instagram. Better yet, support the show on my Patreon to help a creator such as myself with learning on the go. Each like, each comment, each subscriber fuels the motivation I need to make better and better content for yours truly. Come say hi, and thanks for watching.